Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to another episode of the Exotical Storytime series. I am loving the fact that you guys are sending in these stories because everything we've been saying, it is proven to be true. The fact that people don't view us the same as unambiguous people a lot of times, the fact that we experience both racism against our blackness and also racism against our non-blackness from the black community. We've also faced things like skin tone envy or phenotype envy, hair texture envy, and things like that. So if you have any stories like that that you want to send in and you're an exotical, you want to get your story heard, please be sure to email me at exoticalsunited@gmail.com. But let's go ahead and get into the story. She says, "Good afternoon. I grew up in a monocultural black environment. I'm multi-generationally mixed. My skin tone and features are on the Thandie Newton spectrum. I was raised in a two-parent household. My father provided me with more love, empathy, support, and patience than my mother did. For instance, if I said or did something wrong, my father would sit down and explain to me what I did wrong and give me a chance to correct my bad behavior without physically abusing me. My mother was the polar opposite. She was very physically, financially, and emotionally abusive towards me and my sisters. Her method of parenting was on the basis of, I demand respect from my daughters, but I refuse to give them respect in return. After my mother had open heart surgery, I became her caretaker at 14. I did my best to help her and my sister. Me and my sisters helped her recover, and she was still mean and hateful towards us. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people have children because they want their children to kind of be their slaves. They want you to be their caretaker. They want you to do all these chores. I've noticed that a lot of young teenagers feel that way. But let's continue. She says, on multiple occasions, she would tell her illiterate fake friend that if I could do it all over again, I would have sons. She also had a horrible habit of provoking fights with strangers and putting me up to fighting them. When I told her I don't want to do this, she would call me a soft, scary white girl. At the age of 12, I recognized that this behavior is not normal, and I was determined to become the polar opposite of her in terms of thinking, action, behavior, and character. If she wanted me to cook something, she would procrastinate all day. She would tell me cook something good and get mad at what I cooked. When holidays came, if me and my sisters didn't give her a super expensive gift, she would destroy the gift, yell at us, and call her friends up on the phone and complain about it. She loved starting unnecessary drama with us. Her drug of choice was marijuana. If she didn't have her fix, she would act like a raging heroin addict. She would yell at us, hit us. She would yell at us and hit us because we wouldn't give her money for weed and cigarettes. Yeah, this sounds like a regretful parent. I did an episode about toxic mothers. I also did an episode about regretful parents and how a lot of times parents resent their children. They resent the fact that you are innocent and you haven't been beaten down by the world yet. Or, a lot of times if parents hate themselves, it's impossible for a person who hates themselves to then love you. If they can't even love themselves, they can't love you. But let's continue. She says, if we did something wrong, she would hit us with metal curtain rods. One time we had a small dispute about laundry, and she had the audacity to hit me in the face with a bent tennis racket. The sad part about this situation is she was 33 years older than me, and I had enough maturity to walk away from the conflict. She told me, come back here, and she hit me in the face as I fell down on the hardwood floor. When I looked in the mirror, my forehead was bleeding, like the professional wrestler Mick Foley. When my mother saw that I was bleeding, she told me, if you call anyone and tell them about this, I will release you, your fat, ugly, unruly ass, to a foster home. Later on that week, I did tell my older sister about it. She cursed my mother out. In my younger years, my father tried very hard to get full custody of me and my sisters, but the courts favored what the mother wanted. One time, my mother falsely accused me of cashing in her money order at the time. She left her money order inside of an old car that she was going to give to my uncle, and she left it inside of the vehicle when she was cleaning it out. My instincts told me, don't go into that car. I followed my instincts, and I stayed in the vehicle she was driving. The next morning, she had the audacity to wake me up at 4 a.m., yelling and screaming about her money order. I told her that I didn't have it. Being her evil, vindictive self, she decided to call up her longtime fake friend and tell her about her missing money order. As always, her super delusional friend decided to encourage my mother to throw me outside. She started hitting me in the face and she pushed me down the stairs. I don't understand why some black parents falsely accuse you of something and act so surprised when you speak up to defend yourself and call you disrespectful. You know what? This actually reminds me of my dad's mom. She was like this. I remember she would accuse us, like me and my siblings, she would accuse us of breaking things in her house when we didn't break them. She would accuse us of taking stuff or like accuse me of talking back and having an attitude. And I've noticed that a lot of parents can be this way if maybe they had a toxic environment or a toxic background, or if they are mentally ill, which sounds like your mother was extremely mentally ill and just took it out on you because you were vulnerable. I've noticed that if you're in a toxic family or you're in a toxic environment, a lot of people, they will try to pick out the most sane person and they will try to break your spirit. They'll try to pick out the most mentally sane person, the most emotionally stable person, and they will try to tear you down because they are miserable inside. And so a lot of people who are miserable, they want you to feel the same misery as them. They want you to feel as empty as them. They want you to feel as broke as them or as alone as they feel. But let's continue. She says, she took my purse along with my house keys. I sat outside on the back porch for 3 days. I wasn't even allowed to use the restroom and eat. 2 days later, she found her money order and she never gave me an apology. On top of this, she told everyone in the neighborhood that I was a kleptomaniac and she was going to press charges against me. She never tried to clear up my name and tell people I didn't do this. In the mid-70s, her aunt accused her of the same crime. The only difference is my great aunt never found her money order. After my father lost his battle with cancer, she gave me no love, empathy, and support. She harshly criticized me for mourning his loss. My sisters and I had to sneak to go and spend time with our father before he lost his battle with cancer. We gave him motivation to take his medication and stay alive for 12 years. She tried so hard to turn us against him. She would show me old child support pay stubs, trying to convince me that my father didn't love me. She's the reason why my brothers, we have the same father, different mothers, and huge list of my paternal family members are not close to me and my sisters. My mother would go over my father's house, stirring up unnecessary drama. It got so bad that we were excluded from every family reunion. You can grow up in a two-parent household and still experience some kind of abandonment issues. Yes, this is why I do not support the talking point that if you automatically grow up in a two-parent household, or even the argument that if you grow up with your birth parents, it's automatically going to be better for you. No, it depends on the environment you're in. It depends on the mental health of the people you're around. If you are around mentally ill people, then you are more likely to suffer from mental illnesses like anxiety or whatever. But let's continue. She says, with the exception of one aunt and two uncles from my father and mother's side of the family, I am not close with the rest of my family members. Growing apart from siblings has been one of my biggest heartbreaks. My second oldest sister and I are 6 years apart, and we have two different attachment styles with my mother. My second oldest sister is super close to my mother, even though they argued and fought like Jerry Springer in the mid-90s. Every time my mother would say or do something disrespectful towards me, she would dismiss and ignore obvious signs of abuse. She still does. In her distorted mind, being abused by a family member is a normal thing that shouldn't be criticized. Every time someone brings up my deceased mother, I can't help but think about all the times she would ride down the street hitting me and yelling at me for the smallest things. My body type is like Danielle Brooks from Orange is the New Black. I went through puberty at 11. I am a plus-size pear shape. My mother had a slim, athletic body type like Venus Williams. Her skin tone and features were on the B. Richards spectrum. At the age of 26, she told me that I strongly desired to have children with your father because I didn't want ugly children with hard-looking features. When I was 10, she body shamed me for gaining weight. Every time we would get into an argument that she started, she would call me a lazy, sloppy, fat bitch. She would accuse me of doing things, and when I speak up to defend myself, she would call up her friends, change the story, and make me or my sisters into the bad guy. The relationship we had got so bad that I left her house with no money or job. I worked hard to keep everything I have now. Before she died, she went down to the courthouse and filed false criminal charges against me for stealing her car. At the time, I didn't have a driver's license, and even if I did, I had enough common sense to not use her car. If someone threw away my mail or intercepted it, I would have been in jail for something I didn't do. When I called her up to confront her about it, she admitted that she did it to get back at me for leaving her house. Yeah, it sounds like she was a complete narcissist and had a whole host of other mental illnesses. She definitely sounds like she could have struggled with something like PTSD, because one of the side effects of PTSD is you tend to be more likely to have paranoia, even if nobody did anything to you. You just tend to be paranoid because of your own past traumas. So it sounds like she spent a lot of her time projecting on you. First of all, kudos to you for getting out of that house and for being strong enough and brave enough to do that. And kudos to you for finding this channel and for even attempting to fix your mental health, because a lot of people who have gone through similar things to you, they didn't come out of it even seeking healing. So the fact that you're seeking healing, you've already won. But let's continue. She says, I could have easily lost my job, freedom, and my job security all over some blatant lies. When you are underprivileged, it is very hard to find a good lawyer that will properly represent you in court. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I do something nice for someone and they don't appreciate anything that I do for them. I stayed with her for 10 years because I have a sister that is mentally disabled, and I didn't want to leave her hanging. During the first wave of COVID, I decided to kick myself out of my mother's house because she kept begging me for money so that she can buy marijuana. She had a bad habit of giving me and my sisters gifts, and she would take it back and brag about it when she got mad. As soon as she realized that I wasn't going to give her any money, she went into a blind rage and started pouring pitchers of water on me, throwing my stuff out of her apartment. I had to get a police escort just so that I could get my belongings out of her house. She would sit on the balcony with a bat, and she told me, if you come up here, I will strike you. It took me almost a week to get my stuff from her house. After I moved out of her house for the sake of my physical and mental health, I restricted my time and interactions with her. I have no regrets. If I try my best to help you and you do me dirty, that is your burden to carry, not mine. I'm sorry for going on a long 60-minute Barbara Walters rant, but this mess has been weighing on my spirit for over 10 years. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story on this amazing platform. She also says, I forgot to mention that after my father died, he left me with almost $5,000. A check came in the mail, but my money-hungry, evil, vindictive mother had the audacity to cash my check. I wanted to file criminal charges against her, but my oldest sister convinced me not to excuse her for cashing in my money. She lived with me. I had a right to cash it. I lost all love, respect, and trust for her. I think she means she didn't end up convicting her. She also said, compulsive hoarding runs in my family by way of my maternal grandmother. My goal is to become a therapist for women that struggle with this disorder. This way I can bring some peace and clarity to my clients while healing generational trauma. She said, I don't get along with monoracial black women because they exhibit the same negative character traits that my mother had. These women are very mean, combative, unfriendly, and impatient towards me. First of all, the fact that you have overcome this is incredible. If my mother was like that, I would not call her my mother. I would literally disown myself. I would just disown her as my mother. I wouldn't be sad if she passed away. I'm just saying how I would feel. So the fact that you still managed to have compassion and the fact that you also did not allow her to break your spirit, that is remarkable. You definitely have so much resilience, and even having the strength to come onto this platform and to tell your story and to open up and to be vulnerable like this, that's an amazing thing. I feel like so many people, they think that because we are the quote unquote pretty girls, or because we have a certain phenotype, or because maybe we're mixed race, or we look different than unambiguous monoracial dark-skinned black women, they think that means that we have no traumas at all, or that we've never experienced anything bad. But a lot of us actually do go through traumas behind closed doors. Some of us have regretful parents who, they didn't like the fact that they birthed us. They didn't like the fact that we are going to go through life with different privileges than they had. I've seen a lot of mothers like that, where they try to break your spirit while you're in their house under their control, so that when you get out in the world, they want to make sure that you don't succeed and surpass them. And yes, I feel like your mom was definitely a regretful parent, definitely mentally mentally ill with a lot of narcissistic issues from what you told me. But the fact that you overcame this and you were still standing, that shows that she did not defeat you. She couldn't break your spirit. And I think that she knew that even at the time that you lived there. And that's why she tried so hard. That's why she was doing things that were so extreme, like trying to hit you and stuff, trying to hit you in the face. You know, a lot of women, they subconsciously want to hit you in the face because your beauty or the way your face looks can actually be threatening to them and it can actually make them feel intimidated. A lot of people don't realize how threatening some people can look just based on your skin tone. Like, if you can look threatening as an unambiguous dark skinned black person, why can't you look threatening as a lighter skinned person or as a white person or as a mixed person? So I really do think that some people genuinely feel threatened by our phenotypes, or they feel threatened by another woman's beauty. They feel threatened by a woman choosing to have a different personality than her. I think that deep down inside, your mother could have wanted you to turn out just like her. Maybe she wanted you to, have the same hurt or the same misery that she had. But when she saw that it wasn't working, she started to go into overdrive, but she did not succeed. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.